Welcome back to the Sparky Coach podcast. I'm Cam. This is Crowie. We are coming through to you in surround sound. If you have surround sound,
coming right at you, coming right up, yeah.
5.1,
Yeah.
Sonos 10.0.
Yeah. Why use Sonos when you can run cables to it and charge for the labor? How expensive is speaker cabling? Hey, it's like a precious commodity.
I think it's got gold in it. That's why.
It is. Yeah, I knew there was gold in that.
So it's tinged. But welcome back, and thanks for tuning in to another pod.
Lesson 3
of our mini series. I like a mini series. It feels like we've made a Netflix special.
yeah, a bit of an in-house documentary.
Mini series. So lesson 3, we've gone through people, clients, and staff.
People, making sure that your business. You need staff and clients. That's the lifeblood of the business, and you need clients to work for, and you need staff to work for the clients. And just to reference this, I'm not sure if we said this in the first 2 podcasts, but you have to have some element of wanting to grow. Like there has to be some element. Drive. Well, I guess this plays in. We're on numbers at the moment. Back end numbers. We're going to go first, and then front end. So you have to be good with people, be good with numbers, and your product has to be. Excellent. I was going to say sick, but like
be spot on.
Pretty damn good. Yeah. You're never gonna wow anyone with excellence every single job, but that should be your goal.
Consistency.
Yeah, consistency of that. But numbers, when we talk numbers, we're talking forecasting your revenue. We're talking budgets. Recognizing your hourly rate and like knowing where it needs to sit. And I sit with people all the time on the hourly rate discussion. And no matter where you're at, you work on an hourly rate. Like I don't care if you're on a price book or whatever, everything gets reverse engineered back to an hourly rate. And that hourly rate might be higher than anticipated due to efficiency or lower than anticipated due to efficiency. That's the numbers. We're talking hourly rate. We're talking forecasting your business journey north. We're talking job costing projects, job costing service and maintenance, every day measured, every job measured. We're talking numbers, right? That's what we're talking. We're talking getting that bill from the ATO and going exactly what I thought. We're paid.
We have that in our tax bank account.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking numbers. And if you're overwhelmed, don't turn us off, because this is a really important part of business. This is a really important part of making 2024 simple again, actually recognizing if you're charging properly and then recognizing if you're making money. And I just think no matter what you're doing, you can have all the clients, all the staff, your product can be excellent, but let's face it, if the money's not there at the end of the day, or the money is there, but you're working 100 hours a week, like, oh man, fire. Like sometimes with people, the money's there, but they're working 2 or 3 full-time jobs to maintain that. So it'd take 2 or 3 people to replace them. So 1.5 tradies and one tradie and 2 admin people. So it's like, well, if you're working 3 full-time jobs for a general electrical business, you'd be making good money too. You're probably making 300 grand there. What's a standard wage-ish? 90 grand for a Sparky?
Yeah, I'd say.
If you looked like Australia-wide, $45 an hour, 93 grand a year, plus super, plus car, plus petrol, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, where's a $300,000 wage? Close enough to it. So sometimes you can be earning good money, but you're also just working a lot. And that needs to be talked about too, because it's like not all wages are earned off the same amount of hours. But on the numbers thing, what I was saying before, the people have to be in your future with staff and clients, some element of growth. We say this a lot. If you buy yourself, the pros are you buy yourself. There's no mistakes. If you buy yourself, the cons are you buy yourself. If you get that after hours call out, you get Betty call you.
Holiday doesn't look that enticing.
What holiday?
That's right. You don't go on holidays.
Oh no, you can on a camping trip local, like not too far. One you can drive back from.
Yeah.
So about like 30, 45 minutes, and you might be able to even do the call out and then come back to camping. You might even have a stay-at-home vacay. And then you can still manage and service your clients.
Take your family to the hotel in the work truck.
If you're going camping, hey, take your laptop and do some invoices and quotes as well. So no, we've all been there, and we're just trying to say, like, no matter what you're doing, make sure that you are profitable. And make sure the staff have to be in your future. You've all met the disgruntled person at the pub saying, there's no money in business. I tried that. I've been there, done that. You don't know what I know. I'm 6 Great Northerns in and, telling you some life advice. Let me tell you this.
And don't get married.
Don't take life advice from anyone drinking Great Northerns. Do you like a Great Northern?
Look, I'm impartial to it. It's not my favourite.
Yeah.
By any stretch of the imagination.
What's your least favourite beer?
Crown Lager. It's
It's
horrible.
my dad's beer of choice.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty awful.
It's great, but yeah, probably.
I mean, but we'll still take your sponsorship at Crown Lager.
Yeah, 100%. Love you. No, it's not great.
We don't love you. We like you.
Numbers.
Yeah, yeah. So like staff, if you do the calculator we built called the estimator, which has been translated to the beastimator. So you can call it the calculator, formerly known as the estimator. If you do like Prince.
I do like Prince.
Everyone likes Prince. Sexy guy, sexy songs.
Rain.
That's really good. So yeah, staff have to be in your future. Generally speaking, you're going to want 3 trade apprentice teams, about that 5 to 6 people at least.
Can we just reference to if you're on your own, it's great.
I thought you meant Prince.
No.
Yeah.
If you're on your own, it's also not great. The other thing with being on your own is you have a cap. And we've talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You hit the ceiling on it. So what happens is you end up in this continual cycle of basically letting people down because you have you get really good client relationships, and then they talk to their mates, and then you get more clients on board, and then what happens, you end up letting down your original clients because you're trying to upkeep your new clients. So I just really want to reference that, and this is around the numbers point of view, because I think it's healthy and it should be something on your radar it's definitely healthy and definitely something that should be on your radar to have growth and have a look at having some staff members, because this is where I guess the dream that we all had, I'm going to go on my own and I'm going to have so much spare time and I'm going to have so much money, that the I guess stepping stones or the realization can come to fruition, but without having that sort of, I guess, bit of drive, bit of ambition, look, the numbers don't lie.
The numbers don't lie. Yeah, it's too hard by yourself on many reasons. So you're shouldering the sole cost operations, and then it's too hard when you're inefficient. So your cost operations should be between $25 and $35 an hour per head. Too high, not good. Too low, not good. Reference too high being when you see people when they're producing an hour of site work for an hour of office work, not good, right? What on earth is going on there? Reference too low with the business owner doing volunteering in the office, or you having 3 apprentices, and it's the road traders philosophy. Have I told you this philosophy? Remember the road traders? Yeah. It's like, see you watching me, watching you. It's like the apprentice is watching the apprentice, watching the apprentice, watching you. It's like there's too many, I'd say cooks in the kitchen, but there's too many inexperienced people just watching around. And, if you've got traveling in 2 apprentice teams, it's like applicable 1 day out of 5, unless you're a larger company and you've got that like rough end of fit off to unit, whatever, that's okay. But generally speaking, a tradie more than likely cannot handle 2 apprentices.
I think it's also recognizing the type of work there. There's work that requires a tradie input.
You can't travel. If you've got 2 apprentices, you cannot travel. It's got to be same job, full days, consecutive days.
Bench seat.
Yeah.
I'm just picturing
you got to have a milk crate.
Cruising around, or like the edge protection crews. Everyone knows the edge protection crews, and there's just like 3 massive dudes sitting in the Isuzu truck, just like crew, and they're all just like shoulder to shoulder, having a chocky milk.
I'm genuinely scared of most form workers. I'm going to admit. I remember this one guy, I think I shared this in a way back potty, when I was like, do you reckon you can give us some time on the bottom still? Like and he's like, of course, bro. Like, I'm like, sweet. Next day, just putting the top steel down. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I've got a business to run. And I'm just like, whatever you say. Yes. Just cutting my arms up, cutting my hands up. It was hectic. If he wasn't 195 kilos, I mean, I'm big, but just not that big. I'd probably take him down though.
So
in like chess.
So numbers.
Or numbers,
wise, don't put your head in the sand on it first and foremost, and recognizing that there is a element of falling in love with numbers. I think as you grow and as you develop your business, I know you, Crowie, you love numbers
now, but there's an element of also not taking the numbers literally. I think. So it's like you've got to be able to see the forest from the trees. And if you look at someone, because if you looked at it and your cost of ops was too high, you could be like, oh, that's the problem. I need to on cost a higher hourly rate. And that's a lack of education coming through. It's like,
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, right? Because I've got an opinion on it, right? In the fact that you can't just charge ungodly numbers all the time, just as you can't charge ungodly low numbers all the time. Because say, so if you're too low, you're going backwards. That's really simple. If you're too high, you become uncompetitive. And there's a chance that you're probably cycling really, really hard, getting out lots of quotes and lots of potential clients pricing, but you're not successful. Your conversion rate is really low because the market also has an element of, I guess, a market force, we could call it, so to speak. It's like
its
reading the
own
room.
entity.
You
Yeah.
can't do anything about it. So, like, all well and good to be charging as much as you want and as high as you can get, but also equally too that there's the market at play, and the reality is that there's a competitiveness to the industry that we're in that you need to be able to compete on, particularly if you have a large number of staff members to keep happy and keep employed, essentially. That there's a bit of that at play. And I think one thing to recognise is you talked about maybe your overhead is too high, or not sitting where you want it to be, and it's not taking the numbers literally.
And there is a sweet spot.
There is a sweet spot, but it could be stage of business that you've just moved into a factory or you've just onboarded an administration person. So there's forces at play that in turn affect your business and what you can charge out. But what it might happen is for a period of time is that you don't need to increase your rate. What you need to do is just reduce what your profit's going to be, and you have to take that little bit of a hit as a business for the good of the company moving forward. But equally too, there could be a justification to being like, hey, yeah, we're just going to bump it up. And this is the thing, is that there's no real, you can't just get the paintbrush out and be like, this is it. Not one brush can sort of, tar everyone.
Yeah.
It's a moving sort of wheel.
It's its own, I feel like I'm right into spreadsheets, numbers, as you know. I'd build it for fun on a Friday night. Like, I love it, and I love when people come in, and I love hearing their story and how they got to their charge out rate, which is more than likely what my boss used to charge, or like I cold called someone and said, "How much would you charge for the or they just picked a pie in the sky and they made it more, just whatever." I love hearing that kind of stuff, and I also love hearing people's theories on why they landed at that. But also I love educating them, because you can, when you see it on the spreadsheet, you can go, okay, if we change that and adapt that and move this and push this, we can achieve this. And you got to know your numbers back to front, because there's stages of business that you'll be pushing a bit higher in overhead than normal. Maybe it's a growth stage of business where you're training in administration. Like you said, you're moving into a factory, you got the additional van in the driveway, bits and pieces, and you can carry that for so long, but not too long. And but if you set your rate off that, you'll lose 90% of jobs. And how much can you charge? Like, we'll all agree that the more the better. Mm-hmm. Everyone would say that. Like, I can sit here and tell you your 8-hour rate is $170, $180 for a tradie apprentice team, and that's the fact. Like, I'll show you the spreadsheet. It's a fact. Can you be 200? Can you be $300? If you can, sure. Great. Like, 100%. That's amazing. But it's the old coffee theory. You'll pay $15 for coffee once or twice, not the third time. So you might be able to raise your rates and pull the wool over people's eyes once or twice, but your short-term money attitude might have a long-term client effect. Detriment, yeah. So it's like, so you want to base it, but then, so too high when you're carrying too much at a growth stage of business, but too low can also be sort of good and bad as well. So it's generally speaking, there's like a $20 range of a cost price tradie apprentice team that will fluctuate between. Now, if you've got a larger team and you can utilize more apprentices, or, two tradies can travel together because we've got that large job in town and they can basically, set up camp there for 12 to 18 months, then it's like,
anchor.
yeah. But you can actually portion a percentage of your cost of ops to service and maintenance, and a small percentage, because it's pretty low admin, usually, those large jobs. They're either one in a 1 to 2 week quote, or they're cost plus and they're producing one invoice a week. So quite low admin compared to sort of standard service and maintenance. So generally speaking, you might be moving a bulk materials through there as well. So you might be able to tighten the reins up there and then make the money from your service and maintenance or whatever. But you have to know this back to front. There's a general materials move. This is electrical. That's you're making probably $8 to $12 an hour off materials. Now, obviously, that's electrical. Solar and aircon's very, very different. Electrical, you move in sort of 70-80% labor normally. Aircon, solar, you're moving 70-80% materials. So obviously you're quoting for both of them. I sit with people on the job measuring for solar, and it's pretty much like, hey, you cook the hours, but we're way ahead because you had 25% on 15 grand of materials. So it's like, solar, generally speaking, you can get out of a 2-day job with 12 to 15 grand materials. So it's a 20 grand invoice for two. That's why you can't go off revenue solely, or if you do go off revenue, I just feel like it's so immature. I don't know. I just feel like that as a sole measuring metric is to me, it's an indicator without telling. It just tells you. It tells you nothing. Like what if your progress payment came in? Like I was talking to someone the other day, and they had they had a goal revenue, but they moved subcontract aircon through them. And it's like they might make $400 off a $3 grand push onto the aircon company. And so your revenue could be like 40 grand, but you've made $3,000. Like it's like, so it tells you a little bit without telling you too much, but your cost of ops, you have to know that back to front. You have to know your hourly rate back to front in terms of like what you can charge or what price to put in your pre-build, your price book. You have to have a price book. You have to know tradie apprentice teams, tradie apprentice, the Tata, tradie apprentice, which is the same as the tradie apprentice, just sounds more glamorous. You have to know tradie only. You have to know basically the best example to give, even job costing or quoting, you have to know where you can go to and where you can't go to.
So this is one thing I really want to touch on here. I think it's really, really important to know what the ceiling is, which essentially is unlimited. But you need to know what the floor is. And I think this is really important because this comes back to client, right? A client relationship. And I can give a really easy example here, is that you may have a client that you do a lot of work for, could be a builder, could be a facilities manager. It applies to both scenarios, whether you're doing project work or service and maintenance. And they give you a large volume of work, but they've got a particular job that's come in that you've priced, and there needs to be a bit of movement on it, right? And so an example could be that you're working in a project sense, and the builder comes back to you like, hey, mate, we've made an error on our end and we've cooked this quote to our client. We've gone back to all of our suppliers, which obviously all of our trades, and be like, hey, guys, we're looking for some savings here. Because we've cooked it, we're being open and transparent, and this is where the relationship comes in, and have a communication with them, be like, mate, where are you looking? Where do you need to get to? I need the try line because I need to know where I can move to. Now, here's where it comes in. The arrogant response would be, that's the price, deal with it. Now, the opportunity lost here is that you've now opened the door for another Sparky to come in and potentially get the job and give them a window in to have a look at, hey, what are we doing? So have a think about and look at it and be like, we've got a builder. They've got 6 projects that are already underway or already moving through. Happy with 5 of the 6 of them, no problems at all. On this one here, we just need a bit of a cost movement on there because we've cooked our end on it. By knowing your numbers, you know how low you can go while still making some money and not going backwards. But also too, people don't forget that. If it's the type of client who's like, every job I need to pull your pants down, then that's
wrong type of client.
Wrong type of client. But I'm talking about one that you've got this job and then there's 4 others that are already
existing
going on.
Relationship.
It gives you opportunity to know that we can knock off 10% of this or 15% of this, and we're not going to go broke on it. Look, not going to retire on it, but also you've got to think of what's happening next year, what's happening the year after, what's the cost of opportunity by being arrogant about it. And this is one thing that I guess I've been guilty of, I think, and I'm not sure if you've been guilty of it as well, where you're like, oh no, well, the price is the price, just, you just have to suck that up. That's not our problem. But we're a team. We're a relationship. Doesn't matter how you look at it, you're working together. So one really, really important thing about knowing your numbers is it gives you the opportunity to keep that relationship alive. And if they're a genuine person and a genuine relationship that you do a lot of work with, they won't forget that.
No, for sure. And you would, like, back to the people we did a couple of weeks ago, what would you pay to meet that client, and at the start of the relationship, usually so giving and so generous and so like anything's possible. At the end, you can be like, get stuff, but you have to know your floor and to, so put it this way, if you're structured, I don't say correctly, if you're structured in a certain way, then you can make a lot of money off $95 an hour. More than one tradie, right? More than likely your tradie rate will land at 105 to 115 on an 8-hour day.
Yeah.
Now, that's an 8-hour day. I want to say that again, an 8-hour day, right?
Yeah.
But that brings us to like job costing, the importance of how many hours from that job. And this is why you got to know everything. Like I pushed too far on that job with the quote, we lost that, and the potential ramifications extend for the next 10 years. Or I didn't push enough on that job. Okay, now I've got to have a discussion with the client about raising rates. And because people don't want a 20 grand switchboard upgrade, that the next one you do is very much similar for 28. Like there's got to be some kind of education in that. I was a big believer that you got to just, I'm not going to open my spreadsheet in front of a client's, but I will be super transparent. I'll be like, this is where we can get to, this is where we can't. And you got to know when you got to back down, and you got to know when you got to stand up. So I remember sitting with this builder, and he was like, "Oh, I need you to drop this price," and it was a 320 grand unit job, and I said, "No, like can't do it. I know where every dollar's going. I'm a little bit stressed at that price anyway, or stretched. You got to dramatize it up a little bit, like." And I said, and he called me. Yeah, I probably was at that point. And then he said, and he called me back that afternoon and said, "Contracts in your inbox." So it was like, but I knew the numbers back to front on that job. So, this is job costing 101. So many people think job costing is just for that job they're at, and it is. That's fantastic. But it's also to build your IP, your intellectual property, to future-proof you. So when you get that quote that's quite similar in the future, you've got a track record of hours. Now, job costing...
how long does that deck take?
Yeah, we'll get into that in the future, into the next one with process. But like job costing's as much about hours as quality hours. Like you can't just look at, this is where you've got to see black and white, sort of see grey, not black and white all the time. Because if you looked at hours for hours job costing, it's wrong, because not all tradie hours are created equally. Did they need a team but they were by themselves? Did they stop for 3 coffees that day? Did they get was I disorganized?
Yeah, was the job card poorly written? So
did I have to cut? Yeah, did I have to cut holes and finish something to get some cables over because I forgot about them?
Was it different to what
there's
scope was?
So much going on. So anyone that preaches just measure your jobs, like just don't. I wouldn't trust that. That's correct, but wrong at the same time. And you've got to be able to see the grey areas. You've got to be able to nail the grey areas, and you've got to be able to know that, like, you have to play the hand you dealt, right? If you're playing poker and you get 2 aces, you play a certain way. If you get, I'm not a poker guy, but what's a bad hand in poker? 4 and a 5, maybe? I don't know. So, yeah. No, that's consecutive. I don't know. Like the poker people out there will know, like a 2 and 8 or something that's not like some obscure thing I don't know about in poker. But if okay, let's just say this. I shouldn't have listed any. If you get an ace and if you get an ace and a 10, that's blackjack. Like if you actually, is that the same game? It's a different game.
Oh, yeah,
holy crap! Yeah. You confused me.
I didn't confuse you. You confused yourself.
Okay, let's start again. We'll nail it this way. If you get dealt a certain hand, you played a certain way. If dealt a good hand, you play a certain way. A different hand, you play a different way. And there's bluffing and this and that. And this is where like objection handling and sales and all that kind of stuff can just get politely stuffed in my head. And you got to know your numbers back to front. You got to be authentic in communicating that. You got to be confident in how you communicate that. And sales for me is knowing your numbers so well that it will roll off the tongue. The confidence comes out when you're speaking about the switchboard upgrade. This is Dr. Seuss philosophy. You're charging so much, but not too much. There is a line where people lose interest. There is a line where people be like, will talk to their friends and be, hey, that was a bit much, and let's not use that person again. So it's like, you want to be making money, yes, not saying that. You want to be making money, but you also want to be not pulling his pants down.
Yeah.
Basically, you do that, you're just cooked. So you've got to know how much every job costs, how much every day, the quality of those hours. You have to know your cost ops and where you sit on the spectrum of growth. You have to have some kind of desire for some form of team, that I would say at least 5 or 6 with an admin person, and that's going to give you a great lifestyle. On this front, some of the best times of my life, working wise, were Phoenix not sleeping. I was able to take a lot of time and push him down the pram at 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 a.m., whatever, because I had a passive income being generated for me by some great clients and some great staff. That's where you want to be. So life throws you a curveball, or not a curveball, you just want a holiday, whatever, that your business is an asset that is generating money for you when you're not there. That's how you know you have a business. That's Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad 101. So it's but yeah, so you got to know your numbers sort of way back to front.
I think just numbers are super important to have an understanding around it, because it gives you the ability to move and manipulate the jobs that you have in accordance with the outcomes that you desire. And what I mean by that, manipulating, is it gives you the ability to be like, look, we don't need just a tradie on this job. We can get away with the tradie apprentice team, and you'll see the numbers shift. On another job, you'd be like, no, this is non-negotiable. We have to have 2 tradies on it, because it's a very in-depth technical sort of job, and then you can charge accordingly associated with it. But also too, gives you the ability to have your relationships with your clients, and if there is a need to move to help them achieve what their goals are, or what the goal is to keep that relationship alive, people will respect the honesty and transparency around it, because you can give them an answer straight away and be like, can't go any lower, like you referenced with that build. It also gives you the ability to see how you've been in that week in a productivity sense. How many hours have we worked? How many hours have we built out? And what did those hours look like as a whole?
And if there is a disconnect, what's the disconnect?
What's the disconnect?
What went on?
Yeah. And the biggest thing I like about when you're tracking your numbers and identifying what it's taken and what type of labor was used on it, is the most important thing to any business is you've built an IP for it. So the next time you go and do that deck, you've got to quote that deck for a job, you can look at it in confidence to be like, hey, we did this similar job last year. It took X amount of hours with this X amount of labor. What was the quality of that? Oh, look, they were pretty disorganized on that job. The form workers were behind time, et cetera, et cetera. We had to visit it 5 times just to get that sorted. Communicate, mate. It could be a phone call, ring up the same, like the builder, who chances are similar type of job, and be like, hey, that's non-standard, that type of job, hey. And they'll be like, yeah, it was the time of year, it was Christmas, we couldn't get the labor that was required. Sweet, no worries at all. That IP gives you confidence moving forward to be like, yeah, sweet, X amount of hours are required for that deck, and we're going to be fine with that, rather than just throwing that dart at the dartboard and it just hit and hope. It creates certainty and it establishes guidelines for your business. Then in turn, what happens, you can pass that on to someone else to do estimating in the future, while you're sitting back, sipping pina coladas in Fiji.
Oh, yeah. And on the deck work situation, referencing the form workers originally, this is why you can't take hours on a job literally, because let's say you go, oh, that last deck was 90 hours. And then you go, oh, yeah, but I was working between top and bottom steel because the form workers threw me under the bus, right? So it's like, okay, if I wasn't, I'd probably take off 2 or 3 days of that and a couple of stitches from the hospital. But yeah, so you have to know that stuff back to front. You also, you just have to be able to see, whenever you see someone charging a high hourly rate, chances are they've governed it off a spreadsheet that is off a lower amount of hours. So it's like, okay, so there's a stage of business. I know the general rule of thumb is you work getting paid for 24 out of 40 hours as a sole trader. That's cool. That's not applicable when you've got a moving team of 10 and you're getting 400 hours out. So we're talking about two different things, and you have to know your numbers back to front to know what stage and age of business you're at, to know where your numbers sit, to know where they need to sit, to know where they should sit, to know where they could sit. And an hourly rate, just referencing back to that as well, like your hourly rate's solely governed off minutes. So if you can get to $150 three ways. $150 an hour times one, $150. $100 times 1.5, $150. $50 times three, $150. So just because your hourly rate might sit at a certain point, it's totally referenced and governed off billable hours. So your rate might be low, your minutes might be high. Your rate might be high, your minutes might be low. That's why you need to know exactly where you sit, know where you're at. No excuses for this. So we sit with people on what we call a strategy session, and we offer 3-packs when you start up to sort of measure this and nail it. Because once you nail it once, you're educated, and now that education builds confidence, and now that confidence is everything in communication. So knowledge is confidence. Confidence is absolutely everything. So there's no excuses for not knowing that, and don't bury your head in the sand. And there is an answer, and you might not know it. That's okay, but let us guide you in finding the answer.
Get around your numbers. Don't put your head in the sand regarding your numbers, because knowing them and understanding them will help, set your business on a projection that allows you to be not only, successful, but also allows you to be profitable and making money, but also gives you the ability to be flexible. And what with flexibility allows you exposure to all sorts of clients, and the great clients enjoy a little bit of flexibility because often the line is never straight. So get around your numbers, know them, and it will help you a lot in business.
Absolutely. Enjoy. See you soon.
Cheers.